Blackwood Station is defined by what's missing. For 6 years, Arun's shifts were a repetitive blur of rain and silence, but at exactly 11:47 p.m., that silence finally broke. A train arrived that shouldn't have been on the tracks. Only one person stepped off, a barefoot little girl, clutching a red suitcase, her eyes locked onto Arun's. She whispered 5 words, "Don't let them find me." Before Arun could respond, the station lights cut out, plunging the platform into total darkness. When the emergency flickers returned, the girl was gone. No footprints in the rain, no sound of running feet. Only the red suitcase remained, sitting exactly where she had stood. Then the station's speakers crackled to life. The system had been broken for months, yet a clear, cold voice issued a single warning: do not open unclaimed luggage. At Blackwood, the rules were changing in real time. Arun ignored the warning. When he lifted the suitcase, he found it was strangely warm to the touch, radiating a heat that felt less like an object and more like a living pulse. He retreated to the control room, but the anomaly followed him. The station clock stopped, 11:47 p.m. He watched the second hand twitch, unable to move forward, as if time itself had snagged on this specific moment. Taped to the suitcase handle was a photograph showing a family by these same tracks. The date across the bottom, October 13th, 1998. The girl in the photo was the same girl Arun had just seen. She hadn't grown a day. The clothes, the suitcase, even the expression, everything was an exact match for a child who should now be in her 30s. Looking at the girl in the photo, the reality of Blackwood Station began to shift. The suitcase wasn't just old luggage, it was a piece of 1998 that had somehow survived into the present. Arun began tearing through the station's old archives, desperate to find any record of the family from the photograph. He found it in a yellowed clipping from 2 decades ago. Train 407 had entered Tunnel 13 and simply never came out the other side. Investigators found no wreckage and no bodies. The only evidence they recorded were reports from workers who claimed they could still hear children crying from deep inside the darkness of the tunnel, weeks after the search ended. As Arun read, the station lights began to fail again. In the rhythmic strobing of the emergency bulbs, he saw them, dozens of shadowy figures standing on the platform. They were wet, motionless, and they were all facing the control room. The crying wasn't coming from the archives anymore. It was coming from outside the door. By uncovering the story of Train 407, Arun had seemingly called its passengers back to the platform. Panicked, Arun forced his way into a hidden, rusted office behind the main desk, a room filled with the frantic notes of whoever had worked this station before him. The maps on the wall told a story of obsession. Every line and every route was crossed out, except for one. Tunnel 13 was circled in heavy red ink, marked as the point where the tracks seemingly ceased to exist. He found an old tape recorder and pressed play. Through the heavy static, a voice whispered a final, terrifying realization about the people on that train. They're not passengers anymore. The notes and the audio suggested that Tunnel 13 didn't just stop the train, it changed it. Whatever happened inside that darkness had transformed a routine commute into something that was still looking for a place to land. A heavy thud came from the control room. Arun returned to find the red suitcase had burst open, its locks shattered from the inside. It was filled with hundreds of vintage train tickets. Every single one was printed with the same destination, Tunnel 13. The station speakers crackled one last time, no longer warning him, but announcing a schedule. Train 407 arriving shortly. From the darkness of the tunnel, headlights appeared. A rusted, pitch-black train pulled into the station with a deafening screech. Its windows were like ink, hiding whatever was waiting behind the glass. The announcement had been a warning Arun couldn't take back. By opening the suitcase, he had signaled the train that its missing cargo and its next passenger were ready to board. A conductor, soaked to the bone, stepped onto the platform. He didn't ask for a ticket. He just smiled and noted that the suitcase was finally open. The little girl appeared behind Arun, her voice now a distorted, heavy echo. As she spoke, the passengers inside the train turned their heads in a single sickening crunch of bone to stare at him. The station began to dissolve. The clocks spun backward until they blurred, and a final scream of the train whistle drowned out everything else. When the sun rose the next morning, the station was empty, and the rain had stopped. The police found no sign of a struggle, and no sign of Arun. They only found the red suitcase sitting on the platform. Taped to the handle was a fresh ticket, dated for that very morning. Some stations are never truly abandoned. They just wait for someone new to pick up the luggage and wait for the next train to arrive.